Hello and welcome again to another episode of One Starfish, where our mission is to help change the world one starfish or one person at a time. As always, make sure to rate, review, subscribe, share, all the things. Our guest today, Chris, is actually in New Orleans when we're recording, but spends his time between New Orleans and Las Vegas, runs a engineering firm called Revolution Engineering, which he started in 2017, was in the Air Force before, moved around a lot, family guy, all those kind of great things. Thanks so much for coming on the show. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me today.
Awesome. Well, let's get into some stuff we talked about before. You got into the Air Force. You were in the Air Force for quite a few years and moved quite a bit. Tell us, what got you into the Air Force in the first place?
Yeah. So I was dating a girl after high school, and I was kind of bouncing around a little bit between jobs and trying to go to college, but not really, and not really sure what I wanted to do. And then we got pregnant with my son. And so I decided, okay, well, I need to pick something that guides me, gets me a good career going, and provides great medical benefits for us. And that was the Air Force for me. I had an option between kind of the Air Force and the Marines. And I didn't want to join the Army because their boot camp was like, I don't know, 80 weeks. It was a long time. It was like 6 months for boot camp. Marines sounded so cool. I mean, Marines always sound cool. They're amazing. My brother-in-law is a Marine, and I'm like, that's just amazing. And I didn't want to join the Navy because I didn't want to be on a boat for 6 months at a time. So Air Force seemed like the best solution for me. And their basic training was 6 weeks long. And so I did the Air Force and took what a lot of military folks would consider the easy way out.
Awesome. And so what did you learn through all of those years? What was some of your biggest takeaways?
So the biggest takeaways from the military was really just a lot of the discipline and focus that I was able to find. A lot of camaraderie, obviously, some very good structure for me as a young man, kind of floundering a little bit in my 20s. And it really just gave me some good structure and guidance and pushed me in the right direction. And while I was in the military, I was able to take classes that to work towards credit for a degree. So took some of the basic classes and got those out of the way. And that was probably some of the big frustration when I was 18, 19, going back to college, was I felt like I told everybody I want to be an engineer. I knew I wanted to be an engineer, an electrical engineer specifically. And it was like, great, let's sign you up for history and English and, all these other classes. And I'm like, I just did all that in high school. I don't want to do that. I want to take engineering classes. So the Air Force really gave me those types of basic classes just to be able to do my job. I was electronics, aviation on aircraft. So we did a lot of work on that. So I had to know some basic electronics and some basic engineering stuff to be able to work on the plane. And then on the side, I was able to take history and, government and whatever other silly classes, chemistry that they want you to take, stuff like that I didn't like. I like math. I didn't mind taking math classes, but I didn't want to take all these other history classes, which is funny because history actually fascinates me right now. But at the time I was like, I hate this. I don't want to do this. So it really just kind of guided me a little bit, gave me an opportunity to get through some of those classes so that when I did get out of the Air Force, I was able to focus on the engineering side of things.
That makes sense. That's awesome. And then, so yeah, you got out of the Air Force and you got into, went to school, got into engineering. Tell us a little bit about that journey. And like you also mentioned when we were talking off camera, went through divorce, you said that shaped a lot. What did you learn from all of that?
Yeah. So when I finally graduated school, I was lucky enough that in about my junior year, I got an internship with an engineering firm in Las Vegas. And that kind of, engineering is such a broad term. And even when you narrow it down and say electrical engineering or mechanical engineering, there's several different ways you can go. And what that did for me by working with that particular person, one is he was an excellent mentor for me. And two, it's like, okay, this is the type of electrical engineering I want to do. So what I do now is I do commercial building design. So we design all the systems that power up lights and microwaves and stoves and all the things that you have in your house right now. But we do it for more commercial buildings. So all the things you can imagine that require power. That's what our design entails. So it gave me some guidance working for him. So that when I did graduate, I kind of knew what I wanted to do at that point, and that was become a licensed professional engineer in the state of Nevada. So right after I graduated, my ex-wife came to me, wife at the time, obviously, and said, I don't want to do this anymore. We don't want to be married. And it just kind of threw me. I had this vision. We had struggled for so long. I mean, the military doesn't pay great, especially as an enlisted person. And so when I got out of college and I kind of finally settled into the job that I knew I wanted, I was making decent money at the time. We were also getting bonuses, which were great. And I kind of just felt like, okay, now we're in this really nice groove and everything's going on and everything's going to be great now. And then she kind of hit me with I want to get a divorce. And so that was a really rough struggle for me. But what it did is I had never really been alone. We were dating while she was 1 year younger than me. So she was still in high school and I was just out of high school. We started dating, got married when we were 20 and 19, was in the Air Force, had 2 kids at the age of 23. I had never really lived any of my life alone. And so it really kind of, despite the fact that it was devastating, it really helped me understand what it was like to be alone and kind of have to do my own things on my own and not rely on other people. So that was a really good lesson at the time. It was probably a year and a half, maybe close to 2 years later that I met my wife, who I'm with now. And we've been married for 20 years now. So December was 20 years. So obviously a lot of lessons learned from the first marriage, find some guidance, live on my own for a little while, and then find somebody who I know that I really love and how that works and what that means and all the things you learn as you mature. And I'm 53 now. So just all the changes that it kind of forces you to do when you get divorced.
Yeah. And so then you were working for someone when you got out of school, and then you decided to open your own firm in 2017. What motivated you to run your own, and what were some of the obstacles that you had to overcome, and tangible tips, if you have any, of like how you overcame to start your own business in engineering?
Yeah, for sure. I worked for that one place for about 10 years, went to another firm for a little while, learned some new experiences, gained some new knowledge, which was great because I didn't want to settle into one place that only did one thing. And that first firm that I worked with, being in Las Vegas, we did a lot of hospitality work. We did a lot of hotels. We did Cosmopolitan. When I first started there, we were working on Bellagio in Paris and a lot of large scale hotels, not just in Nevada, but really across the country. And left there, went to another firm, and there we did hospital work. We did hospitality work, but we also did hospital work. We did school work. So I got I broadened kind of my knowledge base, and then left that place and just kind of worked on my own for a little while, just doing, side work for folks, and made some decent money doing that. And then found an opportunity in Hawaii, moved my wife and I moved to Hawaii, worked with this firm for a few years, and immediately we get there and they said, we should open an office in Las Vegas. And so within about a month, I was already traveling back and forth from Hawaii to Las Vegas and helping them start a firm in Hawaii. And I mentioned that because it was kind of important when I ventured out on my own. I used that same kind of knowledge that I gained during that time on business development and working with new clients and finding new clients and all those things. I used, like, every one of those steps was kind of a pinnacle for me to be able to branch out on my own in 2017. And kind of what happened was after about 5 years, they kept saying that they wanted to make me a partner. And, so after 3 years there, I moved back to Las Vegas and really grew their office. I grew their office from 3 people to, I think by the time I left, we had 12 or 15. I can't remember now. Grew them from about $300,000 to $500,000 a year in revenue to almost $2 million a year in revenue over the course of 2 years. I mean, really just took that office to the next level. And when I kept saying like partnership, at least in Las Vegas, especially since I created that office and ran it, they're like, oh, sure. Yeah, not a problem. And then nothing would happen. We'd talk about, well, we're talking to the attorneys. So finally in February 2017, I gave them, March 1st of 2017, gave them my notice, said, I'm leaving in 30 days. They said, okay, no problem. I think they're probably tired of me by then and all the changes that I wanted to implement. But April 1, 2017, Revolution Engineering was born, and that's who we are now. So we're approaching 7 years now. One of the things that was instrumental at the time, it was a little bit different. I did kind of, like I said, in like 2011, I started my own business, but it was just me. I didn't have to worry about anybody else. It was just making sure I kept food on my table. When I left in 2017, I really took my time and put together a strong business plan of what we wanted to do. And I had 5 people who started, 4 plus me, that started with me. Now I was the sole owner of the company, so it was still fully my responsibility, but they decided to risk their jobs that they had to come along with me. And it really just, I guess some of the things that I would say that are important to do when you start that is really get a good understanding and a clear direction of what it is that you want to be and what the vision is for the company. 2 of the people left probably within about 6 months. And I think it's because the vision that I had in my mind and the vision that they had in their mind for what the company was going to be was 2 different things. They kind of anticipated the 5 of us conquering small projects everywhere. And I was like, no. I never thought it was going to be 5 people. I want to grow this to whatever. The vision for me was not about number of people or number of offices or revenue or anything like that. It was all about changing the industry and how the industry sees itself to begin with, so very time-based industry. You got to be there at 8 o'clock in the morning. You got to stay till 5 o'clock at night, even if you're just pretend entering stuff on your keyboard, or, we had a guy that would just move his mouse around, all over the place. And
wow,
you sit there for 30 minutes, just moving your mouse and hitting the escape button for 30 minutes. You're like, this is ridiculous. So, excuse me, sorry. So I decided very early on that that's not what I wanted to be. I wanted to be very results based. And that was always my vision is we want to treat our employees with respect. We want to understand that everybody has a different story to tell, whether you're single with no kids and a dog, you're a single mother with 4 kids and trying to raise a family on your own, you're, dual income family with no kids, whatever that is, everybody has a story to tell. And other places where I had worked, it always felt like if you were single, the rules for you were different than if you were married, and kids, So if you're single, it's like, well, why not come in over the weekend? You're single, you have nothing better to do.
What else you got to do? Exactly.
Yeah, what else do you have to do? So we wanted to get away from that and understand that everybody has their own unique story, and then we just wanted to push together as a team. So that was always my vision, is being results based, not time based, and then again respecting every employee's unique situation. And so that didn't really align. Not that they didn't like that part of it. But again, as we started to grow a little bit, things started to change, or I might make a certain decision. Their thing was, well, I thought we were going to be involved in every decision. And one story that I always go back to is my wife and I were traveling in Phoenix. We went to a thrift store. It was around October timeframe. We found a Christmas tree in the what am I trying to say? Like a secondhand store, for $25. Yeah, thrift store. For $25. So we buy this Christmas tree for $25. We bring it back. We're all excited. We're setting up the Christmas tree in the lobby. And everybody's like, you didn't tell us you were going to spend $25 on a Christmas tree. And I was like, whoa. I'm not going to run every $25 decision by everybody in the office. I'm sorry. I'm just not going to do that. And if they're like, well, I thought times are hard and we were struggling. And I was like, a $25 Christmas tree is not going to make or break us. What's going to make or break us?
If it is, we're really in trouble.
Right. Yeah. I said, healthcare, insurance, salaries, those kinds of things make or break us. So if we want to start talking about, trimming salaries down to make sure that we're viable for the next year or so, then let's have that discussion. But don't berate me about a $25 Christmas tree. So a couple of people left after that, which was fine. I didn't mind it. Ultimately, all 4 of the folks at various times have moved on in some way, shape, or form, which is okay. I didn't mind that. I gave each one of them an opportunity and said, if anybody wants to buy in, let me know. And I even said, I'll have the discussion about, not only money, but what you brought to the table to start. So which no other company ever offered me that. Anytime I wanted to buy in, it was like, here's the value of the company. Well, we didn't even get that far, but I would say like, hey,
Hmm.
especially for that Hawaii firm. I brought something to the table. I helped build this firm. I'm happy to put skin in the game. I'm happy to bring cash to the table, whatever that looks like. But I also think you should consider the fact that I grew this office from 500,000
Exactly.
to
Makes
$2
sense.
million. Yeah.
Yeah.
So when we started having those discussions about who wants to buy in, I'm like, what's the value that you brought to the table? One guy's a mechanical engineer. That's a huge value to me. So I'm happy to take that into consideration along with a little bit of money.
Right.
So I was always open to that discussion, but no one ever wanted to get beyond that. So they had plenty of opportunities to buy in. No one ever did. And no, like I said, and I wish them all the best of luck. I don't have any ill will towards any of them, but they've all moved on, which is okay. But we've grown from, again, a 5-person firm to we now have 17 people. I think our first year revenue was 700,000 or so. We were 2023 was an off year, but we were 2.2 million last year. We were 2.4 million in 2022 and have sights on 2.5 to 2.7 million this year.
Yeah, some real growth. What are some of the, as you went through that, did you find, because a common question is like, what got you through the times that, you wanted to quit? Or were there times you wanted to quit? And then what got you through those times where you're like, screw it, I just want to go back to working for someone? Did you have those moments? And like I said, what got you through those moments?
For sure. Yeah. I mean, I still have those moments sometimes today.
I hear you.
I just heard about a engineering firm in Las Vegas that got bought out by a large scale firm, and I was like, wow, no one's ever called me. I might take that phone call. And there's some days where I might say no, never mind, and just hit, send them a voicemail, and other days that I'm like answering on the first ring. So yeah, I mean, certainly I think about it a lot still, even to this day. There's times, last night I had a big struggle being in New Orleans and then everyone else in Las Vegas. Sometimes I'm getting calls till 7, 8, 9 o'clock at night here saying, hey, we're trying to get this out. We don't know what to do. And somebody was out yesterday and I had to kind of help guide some things along. But at any rate, some days are more of a struggle than others. I think, really what got me through initially was just saying like, okay, I had my accountant say something to me one time. They're like, wow, we're really great. That's really great that you have a 401k, but this business is your retirement plan. This is what is, and it really made me think that the business is what's supporting me and my family. And if I want to make sure that I'm providing that support, not only today, but for years to come, and in my retirement age and in our retirement age, when we're ready to retire, I need to make sure this is successful. And this is my, there's a couple different people that I listen to. One person, Andy Frisella, who you and I both know, is, there is no plan B. It's plan A, done. That's it. The other one now that I listen to and think of a lot is Ed Milet. Again, you and I know who that is.
Yeah.
And his big thing is one more day, just one more day. It's kind of an old AA adage, but it's just take it one more day at a time, and that's kind of how I look at it now is, all right, I'm feeling down now, but let's just push through this one more day and see how tomorrow is. And tomorrow's better always. It's usually just something in your head in the moment. So it's a lot of probably the combination of those two things. I'm sure I had my own version of that back in 2017 or 18 at the time. There were certainly, mornings. I remember one in particular where I was up at 2 a.m. going, okay, we don't have enough money for payroll on Friday. What am I going to do? And I am very proud to say that we've never missed payroll for anyone, regardless if it was 5 people or 17 people now. We have never missed payroll, which is, in my mind, awesome. And even through COVID and all that stuff, we did do a little bit of pay cuts towards the end of COVID, but we told everybody, again, trying to be unique here, other offices, I had taken a pay cut before, and there was a never-ending sight of when we would get our normal payback. And then for us, we said, no, we guarantee you that by the end of the year, well, I can't say guarantee. We promise you that one of two things is going to happen. By the end of this year, we're either going to have your pay cuts back, or we'll let you know that we're going to extend it. And then when we extend it, we'll let you know what we see on the horizon for that. So we were able to give pay cuts back by like November instead of December, which was really good. And then some people even got a raise at that point. So all that to say is that we've never, I guess I got off track a little bit, but one night, 2 a.m, going, what am I going to do about payroll? I don't know what to do. And my wife finally wakes up and she's like, what are you doing? And I said, I'm freaking out about how I'm going to make payroll. And she had some money in an account that was given to her by her grandparents and said, how much do you need? And I said, about 10 grand. She's like, okay, I will cash that out tomorrow and that'll go in our bank account. And, so just.
You married the right lady.
Yeah, exactly right.
That's a good
exactly
sign
right.
on that.
So, yeah. And so every now and then, because, my wife is super supportive. I mean, that's
Obviously.
been hugely helpful. Yeah, right. I mean, not just financially, but emotionally. She gets to hear all my rants and raves at the end of the day. And sometimes so she's on the payroll now, which is great. Obviously, I get a salary from the company, which is great. And, she does a little bit. Her official title is Director of Shenanigans. So,
love it.
But a lot of what she does is maintain order for me outside of the office. So, the house is always taken care of. When I come home, it's like, oh, here you go. Here's your dinner. And I'm like, this is amazing.
Nice. This is amazing.
And so
I need one of
people
those.
in the office will be, yeah, right. And so sometimes people will be like, well, what does Trixie do? And I'm like, she makes sure that your payroll is met. How's that?
Very important. Yes.
Right. Exactly right. So it's like, and she keeps my mental sanity. Trust me, if she wasn't there, you guys would be in a whole lot worse shape. So anyway, no one really questions it. They all love Trixie. She's amazing. She's kind of like this. We always joke around that when she comes into the office, she's like a whirlwind. She comes in and she's like, who's doing shots with me? And what are we doing? And then she's like, and then she runs off, and everyone's like, what just happened? And sometimes I'll come back and everybody's like, Trixie was here. And I'm like, I can tell. So that's why we call her our Director of Shenanigans. So
the energy. I love the energy. That's awesome.
She's great. Yeah.
Really important. I love it.
For sure.
So in wrapping up, I always ask 3 final questions and then anything that we didn't touch on that you think would be really impactful for our listeners. So first and final question is, if someone's looking for their purpose, what's one sentence you could say that could help them find it?
Sometimes you find your purpose by accident. I don't know that it's always that you have this vision in your mind. For me, I didn't always think I was going to be an engineer and a business owner like that. I think it kind of found me. I've also heard this, like let's say somebody who's in the oil industry, nobody grows up and says, ooh, I want to own an oil business, right. or I want to own a 7-Eleven. Sometimes these things just kind of fall into your lap. You grow up saying, I want to be a policeman and a fireman or a cowboy or, whatever.
Right.
Rarely do you grow up again and say, I want to be an owner of an engineering firm. Some of these things kind of just fall into your lap. And I think you need to recognize that when that opportunity is there, take advantage of it. And then it becomes your purpose. Mm-hmm. So purpose isn't always just given. It's not like a divine intervention. I think sometimes you fall into your purpose.
Good. I like that. Second one is, what's a favorite quote and why?
My favorite quote, and it floats around, it's attributed to several different people. I think ultimately it falls back onto Seneca, but it's the way you do one thing is the way you do everything. And there's multiple variations about that. I think Nick Saban talks about it, and I think they said they have it on the wall. I guess not anymore, maybe because he's not in Alabama, but there's several variations of that similar quote. A lot of people use it in a lot of different ways.
I love that one. I say it all the time. And third and final question, what's one word or sentence you want on your gravestone?
Father. I want to be known as a father, as a good father. That's important to me. I think that, so a couple things. One is, I was, hope my mom doesn't hear this, but wait, I was really kind of technically a bastard child. So I was I was the result of an affair that went awry. And so my mom was married, had an affair, I was the result of that affair. And then she married my dad, and my dad is my dad, and I don't even know who my biological father is.
Sperm donor versus father.
Care. Exactly. Thank you. Don't really care. And my father struggled a lot when I was young with alcohol and drugs, and it was a strained relationship for a long time, and I'm very happy that he got over that, and certainly when I was younger, he wasn't around a whole lot because of that. But as I grew older and when I moved out of the house, and then I think it was really my son, when he saw my son for the first time, it was like a wake up call, like, wow, this is him. And I just remember how much he loved my kids, and both of them, and he would watch them during the day. I was still in the Air Force at the time when I moved to Las Vegas, and my parents lived in Las Vegas. My dad would watch him during the day when I had to go to work, and he just loved his grandchildren. And I always say, like, it was rough for me as a child, but I'm so happy that my dad was there for us with the grandkids. I mean, he loved them to death. And he's since passed. He passed in 2007 or 2008, and they miss him dearly still to this day, as do I. But I always wanted to be, even going through my divorce and what Trixie, who's in the background, what she helped me with, was always be there for the kids no matter what. And I fought for them every single day. Like, my ex-wife would try to get full custody. We had a great arrangement when I first was divorced, and we got half and half custody. I had him for a week. She had him for a week. And I was very blessed that we had good judges that said, nope, that's the same way. You're going to maintain that. Every time she went back to get, more child support or fight for full custody, she did it 2 or 3 times. And every time the judge says, no, I really like this arrangement, we're keeping it. Oh. And I always constantly fought for my kids when they were getting older, because I wanted to be a strong influence in their life. And I think that shows today with the relationship I have with my kids today. And that has always been extremely important to me, just to try to be a good father to them. And I hope a testament to that is the fact that when they need advice on something, they usually come to me and ask me, and even in some instances, they'll say, like, well, I can't talk to, I can't talk to my in-laws because they just don't get it, or they'll just say, you have to do this or you're an idiot or something like that. Or they'll try to, in some cases, maybe throw money at the problem or something like that. And that's not always the right solution. So I try to give them, good guidance when they do come to me and ask for advice, and try to give them 2 sides of the coin, and then maybe say, this is what I might do, but if you go this way, this is how I think you should do it. As an example, my son was selling his house, or was thinking, like, sell my house or rent my house in Las Vegas. And I said, renting is tough. You can. Personally, what I would do is I would sell it, because I think the market's good right now and you'll make a lot of money from it. You can rent it, but renting can be tough, because if you're the person who's managing it, then you get the phone call when the water heater breaks. You get the phone call when the air conditioning's out. So if you're going to do that, at least get a property management company. He ultimately decided to sell it, but I think what he told me later, what he appreciated was the fact that I kind of gave him options, and so to me, that's a testament of being involved heavily in their lives when they were younger, during their formative years, despite the fact that they always didn't like me. We all at both times butted heads, whether it was my son when he was younger, my daughter as she got older in her teenage years. We used to butt heads a lot, but now we have amazing relationships. And like I said, my daughter works with me. Both of them work with me now. And we have great relationships. We just spent a weekend, my daughter and grandchildren and son-in-law and I spent a weekend in Utah a few weeks ago, just hanging out, playing in the snow and having a good time. And, so that was fantastic. So I just really appreciate the relationship I have with both my kids.
Awesome. So in wrapping up, say you run into someone in a coffee shop, they're like, man, I learned a lot, about family, about business, about Air Force, about all this stuff. What's something we didn't touch on that you think would be really impactful to leave our listeners with?
That's a great question too. I don't know. I think probably, persistence and discipline is important in anybody's life. And I think that sometimes, even if you fail, like, you got to find a way to get back up and then just be disciplined about the things that you do. I find for me, I like the morning routine that I have. I try to be very disciplined in my morning routine, no matter what day it is, what day of the week, and have a very kind of set pattern of things that I like to do. And to me, that always just sets me off in the right direction. Early wins in the day, just to kind of keep things moving forward for me, as opposed to, being random about when I go to bed and when I get up and the routine that I do, and not really knowing where I'm going to go. By doing the same thing every morning, it sets me in the right direction to say, now I've done my reading, my journaling, my visualization. I've had a lot of water. I made the bed. Okay, what's next? Oh, that's right. I've got to do business development for the business, or whatever that might be. Like, it just kind of is like, creates a nice sequence of things to do.
Right. That's awesome. I love it. Well, guys, reach out if you have any questions for Chris. We'll have all of his information, his company, all this fun stuff in the show notes. Let's go out there, guys. Let's change one life or one starfish at a time. If we can change one life at a time together, we can change the world. Thanks for being on, Chris.
Thank you.